Have you ever walked into a room and felt the atmosphere change before anyone said a word? Have you ever met someone and within seconds you just knew something was off, or that they could be trusted completely without knowing why? That's not magic. It's not mind reading. It's a skill that can transform the way you connect, influence, and protect yourself. A skill that can open doors in business, deepen relationships, and keep you one step ahead in a world where words are often disguises. Today I'm going to show you how to read people without them ever realizing you're doing it. This is not about manipulation, it's about awareness. Because when you understand people, you understand the game. And you start to play it at a higher level. Let's begin with the first step. The foundation that all great observers master: stillness. Stillness is more than the absence of motion. It is a deliberate act of slowing your mind and body so that you can notice what others miss. Most people, when they meet someone new, rush into the interaction. They speak quickly, they try to impress, they fill the silence because silence makes them uncomfortable. And in that rush, they blur the details that could have told them volumes about the other person. But stillness is a different approach. It says, I do not need to fill this space. I am here to watch, to listen, to absorb. When you hold stillness, you are giving the other person the stage. You let them show you through every small movement and shift in expression who they are in that moment. A tapping foot, a sideways glance, a nervous laugh. These are not random. They are signals. The human brain is constantly broadcasting its emotional state through the body. But only those who are calm enough to see it will catch it. There's another reason stillness is powerful. It changes the energy of the interaction. People are used to conversations where each person is trying to outpace the other. When you are still, you are not competing for space, you are holding it. And that changes how the other person behaves. They might open up more because they feel you are truly present. Or they might become nervous because they realize they cannot distract you with words. Either reaction is information, and it's priceless. Stillness also allows your own senses to sharpen. Think about walking into a forest. If you stomp and shout, the animals scatter. But if you stand quietly, the forest comes alive. You hear the rustle of leaves, the distant call of a bird, the wind shifting through the branches. People are no different. When you move too much or talk too fast, you scatter the subtle cues. When you hold still, you invite them to emerge. And here's the deeper truth. Stillness is not passive. It's an active choice to resist the urge to react immediately. It's the discipline to let a moment breathe so you can see it fully before deciding what to do next. That discipline puts you in control, not by overpowering the other person, but by giving yourself the clarity to respond with precision. In a world that rewards speed, stillness is your secret advantage. It's the moment you step out of the noise and into awareness. And when you start from that place, you'll begin to see the unspoken truths people carry with them. Truths they might not even know they're revealing. The eyes are often called the windows to the soul, but that phrase is more than poetic. It's rooted in something deeply human. Our eyes reveal what our mouths try to conceal. They react faster than our conscious mind can edit, offering a raw glimpse into emotion, interest, discomfort, or intent. When you start to pay attention to them, you begin to see that they tell stories long before the words arrive. When you meet someone, notice where their gaze lands first. Do they look directly into your eyes and hold the contact, or do they flicker away after a second? A steady gaze can feel like connection or confidence, but it can also be a show of dominance. A quick glance away might mean shyness, uncertainty, or even deception, but the meaning changes depending on the rest of the moment. This is why your role is not to jump to conclusions, but to gather data. The eyes are giving you pieces of the puzzle, and your task is to notice without rushing to solve it. Pay attention to movement. Pupils dilate when someone is excited, engaged, or attracted, and they constrict when there is discomfort, stress, or hostility. You can't consciously control your pupils. Your nervous system makes those decisions before you can think. That's what makes this signal so valuable. A sudden change in pupil size when a topic is raised or when a certain person enters the room is a clue worth storing away. There's also the matter of where the eyes drift during conversation. Someone deep in thought often glances upward or to the side. accessing memories, or imagining possibilities. Someone avoiding a question may drop their gaze, not because they're inherently untrustworthy, but because they're retreating inward, searching for the safest thing to say. This retreat might last a fraction of a second, but if you are truly watching, you'll catch it. What makes the eyes so powerful is their complexity. A look can be warm and genuine, making you feel seen in a way that words never could. It can also be sharp and cold, stripping away comfort with a single glance. People can force a smile with their mouth, but faking a smile with their eyes is much harder. Genuine warmth lifts some muscles around the eyes, creating tiny crinkles, what's called a Duchenne smile. A smile without this is often just a performance. The challenge is to look without staring, to observe without making the other person feel inspected. This is where your presence matters. If you are calm and engaged, your attention will feel like connection rather than intrusion. People reveal more when they feel safe, and safety opens the door for honesty. Once you begin to notice these cues, it's like learning a new language, one you can't unhear or unsee. You'll find that conversations are no longer just about the spoken word. You'll hear the dialogue in the pauses, in the flicker of an eyelid, in the way someone's gaze clings or wanders. And in that hidden dialogue lies the truth most people miss. Most people believe they are listening when, in truth, they are only hearing. They focus on the words, waiting for their turn to speak, but they miss the most telling part of the exchange, the music beneath the words. Every voice carries an emotional fingerprint, a subtle layering of pace, pitch, rhythm, and volume that can reveal more than the sentences themselves. When you learn to listen beyond language, you begin to notice that what people say and how they say it often live in two completely different worlds. The pace of speech is one of the first giveaways. Someone speaking quickly may be driven by excitement, passion, or nervous energy. The words tumble out, almost chasing each other, as though they might lose their chance to be heard. At other times, rapid speech is a shield, a way to fill space so you have no opportunity to interrupt with a question that might expose something they'd rather not discuss. On the opposite end, slow, deliberate speech can convey calm confidence, but it can also be a calculated choice, used by those who want to maintain control of a conversation or keep you waiting for their next point. Listening for pace is not about deciding which is good or bad, but about noticing the underlying state of mind that shapes it. Pitch tells its own story. A voice that climbs higher than usual can be a sign of anxiety, uncertainty, or even excitement. When someone is tense, their throat muscles tighten, subtly altering their tone without them realizing. A lower pitch can sound grounded and assured, but it can also mask guardedness or an attempt to assert dominance. The key is not to isolate these signs, but to combine them with the rest of what you're sensing. A high pitch paired with quick speech might be nervous enthusiasm. A low pitch paired with long pauses could be thoughtful reflection or quiet resistance. Then there are the pauses. In normal conversation, pauses give space for thought. But when a pause appears in an unexpected place, right before answering a question, for example, it can signal hesitation, caution, or a search for the safest answer. Some pauses are almost imperceptible, a split second of silence that feels heavier than the words around it. If you're attuned, you'll notice that these pauses often carry more meaning than the statements themselves. Even volume can reveal what someone is feeling. A voice that grows softer when discussing certain topics might suggest vulnerability or fear. A sudden increase in volume can indicate rising emotion, sometimes passion, sometimes frustration. Humans instinctively respond to vocal shifts, but when you train yourself to notice them consciously, you gain insight that others overlook. Listening in this way requires patience and presence. It means resisting the urge to fill every quiet moment and allowing yourself to be fully immersed in the soundscape of the other person's speech. When you stop listening only for meaning and start listening for emotion, you'll begin to hear the truth beneath the surface, the truth the words alone could never tell you. There is a fleeting moment in almost every human interaction when the truth slips past the mask. It is so brief that most people never notice it. A fraction of a second where the face reveals what the heart is feeling before the mind has time to hide it. These are micro expressions, and they are the purest form of emotional leakage. They cannot be rehearsed, They cannot be perfectly controlled, and once you learn to notice them, you begin to see how much people communicate without ever meaning to. Imagine someone saying, "I'm fine," with a quick upward curve of the mouth. To the untrained eye, it's a smile. But if you are truly watching, you might catch that for just a blink. Their brows drew together, or their lips tightened before stretching into that smile. That is the real emotion slipping out, the sadness, irritation, or doubt that the words are trying to cover. These flashes are involuntary. They happen because the emotional centers of the brain react faster than the conscious mind can construct a performance. Catching them requires a level of attention most people are unaccustomed to giving. It's not about staring someone down, but about being fully present. Most microexpressions happen in less than half a second, which means if your mind is wandering or you are focused only on formulating your next response, you will miss them entirely. The art is in relaxing your gaze enough to take in the whole face at once. The eyes, the mouth, the brow, the muscles around the cheeks. You are not dissecting in real time. You are allowing the signals to reach you. The fascinating thing about microexpressions is that they often contradict the story the person is trying to tell. A politician may speak confidently about unity while a fleeting flash of contempt crosses their face. A friend may express joy for your success, but for an instant, a shadow of envy appears. These moments don't necessarily mean someone is lying. They may simply be experiencing conflicting emotions. We all do. But when you recognize these contradictions, you gain a deeper understanding of what's truly happening beneath the surface. It is important to approach this awareness with empathy, not judgment. Seeing these flashes of truth is not a license to confront or accuse. It is an invitation to understand the complexity of the other person's inner world. A microexpression of fear might mean they are feeling vulnerable, not that they are being deceptive. An instant of anger might mean they feel hurt, not that they are your enemy. By holding this understanding, you can respond with greater care and precision. Over time, noticing microexpressions becomes less about catching someone in a falsehood and more about developing a richer emotional map of the people around you. You begin to see not just what they want you to see, but the feelings they carry beneath their words. And when you can hold that knowledge quietly without exposing that you've seen it, you carry an advantage that is as much about connection as it is about insight. The body is a storyteller that never runs out of material, even when the mouth is silent. Long before language, our ancestors relied on posture, gestures, and movement to signal intent and emotion. That ancient communication is still alive in us today, quietly revealing truths to anyone who knows how to look. One of the clearest clues lies in orientation. Where the body points, the mind often follows. When someone is engaged, their torso, shoulders, and feet tend to align toward the person or object holding their interest. It's an unconscious act, a physical leaning in that says, "I am here with you." In contrast, when attention is divided or escape is on their mind, the body often turns away. It may be subtle, feet angled toward the door, a torso slightly rotated, knees pointing elsewhere. The mouth might still be smiling, the conversation is still flowing, but the body is whispering a different message: "I'd rather be somewhere else." This is not just about spotting disinterest. It's about reading the shifts. Someone may start a conversation fully oriented toward you, but as certain topics arise, their stance changes. They fold their arms, angle their chair, or begin to fidget. None of these movements alone are proof of anything. They can have innocent explanations. But together, they begin to paint a picture of what's happening internally. Crossed arms are a good example. People often associate them with defensiveness, and sometimes that's true. But crossed arms can also be a way to get comfortable, to keep warm, or simply a habit. The real insight comes when you notice how this posture fits into the flow of the conversation. If arms fold just as a sensitive question is asked, or if a person shifts their body away while their tone becomes cooler, you're likely seeing more than a stretch or a shiver. Feet are especially revealing because we rarely think about them. A person may train their face to smile or their hands to remain still, but the feet betray comfort or unease without permission. When someone's feet remain planted toward you, they're grounded in the exchange. When they pivot outward, even slightly, it's often a sign their mind is moving in that same direction. This signal is subtle enough that most people will never realize you've noticed it. Observing body orientation also teaches patience. Instead of reacting immediately to a single gesture, you learn to watch for patterns. A person leaning in with open posture while discussing one subject, then pulling back and angling away during another, gives you a roadmap to their emotional landscape. You can use that map to steer the conversation, ease discomfort, or explore a topic more deeply, without ever making the other person feel you've been analyzing them. By attuning yourself to these silent signals, you begin to engage with people on a deeper level. You are no longer confined to the surface of what is said. You're reading the undercurrent, the quiet truth told in the way their body inhabits space. And that understanding becomes a quiet power, one that lets you connect more meaningfully while always staying one step ahead. There are moments when something shifts in a room and you can feel it before you can explain it. The conversation may still be polite, the words still ordinary, but the emotional climate changes. It is as though the air has thickened or lightened, and you find yourself responding to that change without fully knowing why. This is the energy shift, and it is one of the most telling yet least consciously noticed cues in human interaction. We are wired to detect these subtle changes because our survival once depended on it. Long before language, we relied on the ability to sense tension, threat, safety, or warmth from those around us. Even now, our nervous systems are constantly scanning for emotional signals. When someone enters a room with genuine joy, the atmosphere often lifts, making others feel lighter without a word being spoken. When someone walks in carrying unspoken anger or fear, the space tightens. People may become quieter, guarded, or restless without understanding why. The key to reading people without them knowing is to trust this sensitivity rather than dismiss it. Many brush off these impressions, thinking they're imagining things, but often these gut reactions are the result of picking up on micro cues, changes in facial expression, muscle tension, tone of voice, or even breathing patterns that the conscious mind doesn't register in detail. Your body knows before your brain catches up. The first step in harnessing this skill is to pay attention to how you feel in someone's presence. Notice if you feel more relaxed or more tense, if your thoughts seem clearer or more clouded, if you feel pulled in or pushed away. These internal reactions are data. They don't always tell you the whole story, but they alert you to a shift worth exploring. A conversation might seem harmless, yet you suddenly feel a knot in your stomach. That tension might be your body responding to a subtle undercurrent of hostility, dishonesty, or anxiety in the other person. It's important to separate your own emotions from what you're sensing in others. Sometimes the shift you feel is about them. Sometimes it's about your own state of mind. This is why self-awareness matters. The more you understand your own emotional baseline, the easier it is to detect when what you're feeling is coming from someone else. When you become attuned to energy shifts, you gain an advantage most people overlook. You can sense when a meeting is going well before it's officially decided. You can detect resistance to an idea even when no one voices it. You can tell when someone is about to open up or when they're about to withdraw. You may not always know the reason for the shift, but recognizing it allows you to adapt, softening your approach, changing the topic, or leaning in to explore deeper. This awareness transforms the way you move through the world. You stop missing the invisible changes that shape every interaction, and you start responding with intention. By listening not just to words, but to the quiet shifts in emotional energy, you step into a realm where others remain unaware, yet you are fully awake. Every person moves through life with a certain rhythm. It's in the cadence of their speech, the way they gesture, the timing of their laughter, the pauses between their words. Over time, this rhythm becomes familiar to those around them, even if no one consciously notices it. It is like a personal signature, written not on paper, but in movement and expression. And that is why a sudden break in that pattern is so revealing. When someone shifts out of their usual flow, there is almost always a reason. Imagine a friend you've known for years, someone who always greets you with easy conversation and open gestures. Then one day, in the middle of a topic, they grow quiet, their hands still, their eyes dart away. The change may last only a moment, but it feels different. That moment is a signal. A pattern break often marks the point where the person's emotional state changes, where discomfort, stress, or a hidden thought surfaces, disrupting their usual rhythm. These breaks don't have to be dramatic. In fact, the more subtle they are, the more telling they can be. A person who usually sits forward might lean back slightly during a certain question. Someone who speaks with steady confidence might suddenly rush their words or stumble over a phrase. A person who is expressive with their face might go momentarily blank. In the context of the conversation, these small deviations are like blinking lights, drawing your attention to something unspoken. The real skill lies in noticing these breaks without reacting too quickly. It's tempting to pounce on the change, to ask directly what's wrong, but that often causes the other person to retreat further. Instead, you hold the awareness quietly, allowing the conversation to unfold. You may choose to gently steer it toward or away from the trigger, depending on your goal. The point is that you have seen something others would miss, and that gives you the opportunity to respond with precision. Recognizing pattern breaks requires more than observation. It requires familiarity. This is why the best readers of people are often those who pay attention over time. The more you watch, the more you understand what normal looks like for a person, and the easier it is to detect when something falls outside that range. Even in a first meeting, though, you can start to establish a baseline within minutes. The key is to notice the small consistencies in their behavior before the break occurs. When you learn to detect these shifts, conversations become layered in a way that others don't experience. You're no longer confined to the literal meaning of the words being spoken. You're attuned to the moments when truth and performance collide, when the inner world leaks out through a tiny crack in the outer one. That momentary break in pattern is often the closest you'll get to someone's unfiltered state. And if you know how to listen to it, it can tell you more than hours of careful conversation ever could. No single gesture, glance, or tone can tell you the whole story about a person. Human behavior is too layered, too nuanced to be decoded from one isolated sign. A frown might mean anger, but it could also be concentration. Crossed arms could signal defensiveness, or simply that someone is cold. This is why the real art of reading people lies in layering your observations, weaving them together until the scattered pieces form a coherent picture. It is like listening to a symphony. You don't judge it by a single note. You understand it by how all the instruments work together. When you watch for patterns across multiple channels, facial expressions, voice tone, body posture, energy shifts, you move beyond guesswork. A single cue can be misleading, but when 3 or 4 cues point in the same direction, the probability of your interpretation being accurate rises sharply. You might notice that as someone answers a question, their voice tightens, their feet turn slightly away, and they avoid your gaze. Any one of these signs on its own could be explained away. Together, they suggest a discomfort that's hard to ignore. Layering also means tracking changes over time. People are dynamic. Their signals evolve throughout a conversation. At the start, they may appear open and relaxed, but as the discussion touches on certain topics, their tone might lower, their shoulders hunch, and their speech slow down. These aren't just random fluctuations. They're data points that, when combined, tell you which subjects are safe and which stir unease. It's like mapping a terrain while you're walking through it. The more landmarks you notice, the more accurate your map becomes. This approach demands patience. You can't rush to conclusions because layering is about accumulation. The first cue is just the beginning. You need to collect enough evidence to understand the broader emotional landscape. It is a process of holding observations in your mind without judgment until they align into something clear. That clarity, when it comes, feels different from speculation. It feels grounded, as though the pieces have clicked into place. The beauty of layering is that it also keeps you humble. It reminds you that people are complex, that your first impression might be incomplete or even wrong. By waiting for multiple signals to confirm each other, you reduce the risk of making snap judgments that can damage trust. You give yourself room to see the whole person, not just a fleeting expression or gesture taken out of context. When you work this way, you begin to see conversations as multidimensional. You hear the words, but you also hear the pauses. You notice the smile, but also the tension in the jaw. You sense the openness in posture, but also the subtle shift of the feet. And as these signals stack together, they create a picture so vivid and accurate that you can navigate the interaction with confidence, adjusting your approach in ways that feel almost instinctive. This is the quiet mastery of reading people, not through single moments, but through the layered truth that emerges when you pay attention to all of them. Reading people is not about judgment, it is about understanding. The deeper your awareness, the more you see that most behavior is not random. It is rooted in needs, fears, hopes, and past experiences that are often invisible to the casual observer. When you learn to look beyond the surface, you stop taking things at face value. You begin to sense the layers beneath a person's words, to feel the emotional currents shaping their actions, even when they are trying to keep them hidden. Understanding someone in this way changes the way you respond. Instead of reacting to what they present, you can respond to what they truly feel. If you sense frustration beneath politeness, you can choose to diffuse it rather than provoke it. If you detect insecurity behind overconfidence, you can offer reassurance instead of challenge. This is the difference between a conversation that escalates and one that deepens. The other person may never realize you've read them so accurately, but they will feel understood. And that creates trust without you ever having to announce what you know. True understanding also requires stepping out of your own perspective. It's easy to filter everything through your own assumptions, to believe that someone's tone or expression must mean what it would mean if you were in their place. But people's reactions are shaped by their own histories, and those histories may be nothing like yours. By staying curious instead of certain, you give yourself the chance to see the world through their eyes, which often changes the meaning of what you observe. There is also a quiet discipline in keeping what you know to yourself. When you can read people without them knowing, you hold a kind of power. That power can be used to manipulate, but it can also be used to guide, protect, and connect. The moment you reveal too much of what you've noticed, the other person may become guarded, changing their behavior to hide more carefully. But when you keep your awareness private, you preserve the flow of authenticity, allowing you to see even more over time. This kind of perception turns every interaction into an opportunity to learn. A brief exchange at a cafe, a conversation in a hallway, a meeting at work, all become moments where you can practice attunement. The more you practice, the sharper your senses become, and the less likely you are to be caught off guard by someone's hidden motives or unspoken feelings. You begin to notice that most people, no matter how skilled they are at managing their image, leave small cracks in their facade. The beauty of this awareness is that it makes you both wiser and more compassionate. You see the effort people put into hiding their fears, the way they cover pain with humor or mask doubt with certainty. And instead of judging them for it, you recognize it as part of being human. When you carry that understanding into your relationships, you not only navigate the world with greater ease, you also create spaces where others feel seen, even when you never say a word about what you've perceived.